All right, General Ben Hodges retired, is a former commander of U.S. Army Europe. He is currently the Pershing Chair in Strategic Studies, the Center for European Policy Analysis. Hi, General.
Dana, good afternoon.
Ben, if you can guide me through what's happening in the Black Sea, because a lot of people say that we're hearing a lot about the ground war, but in fact, there is a real struggle in the Black Sea to stop Russia from permanently shutting down Ukraine's access to those waters. And there's a lot at stake for the world right now.
Yeah, there is a lot of illegal activity underway by the Russian Federation, including their Navy. They've been doing this for years, and they just never have really been challenged adequately for what they're doing. And certainly their operations are intended now to isolate Ukraine away from the Black Sea for the purpose of wrecking their economy and as a stage and eliminating Ukraine as a state. So that's what this is about. And by blocking their ports or occupying their ports, of course, Ukraine is unable to export its grain, which millions of people depend on around the world. And of course, Ukraine's economy depends on that a lot. So this is part of what's going on. The ability of Russia to launch missiles into apartment buildings from their Black Sea fleet is also a component of what's going on here. But look, this is also about freedom of navigation on international water. Turkey should be playing a critical role here. Turkey has, in fact, stopped Russian ships from entering the Black Sea through the Bosphorus, through the so-called Turkish Straits, which is a good thing, although, frankly, I think it was a few weeks too late. Turkey talks about regional ownership, and I think right now is a great opportunity for them to demonstrate regional ownership by pressing Russia to allow grain export, for example, from Ukraine.
Do you think that this blockade, which was never announced as a blockade, it was supposed to be a naval exercise, is that an illegal blockade?
Well, a blockade is an act of war in legal terms. So if they don't declare it, I think this is Russia continuing to skirt around the edges of legality. But it was important that Turkey said that what's happening in Ukraine is a war. And so under Montreux Convention, that's the description or the definition that they used in order to be able to restrict Russian warships from coming up through the Straits. The fact is, Russia blocks grain shipments and other shipments through the port of Odessa, as well as other Ukrainian ports.
There are nearly 25 million tons of Ukrainian wheat stuck in Odessa. There are commercial shipping vessels, not all of them Ukrainian. There are commercial shipping vessels that are stuck there right now. There will be a harvest in Ukraine, which is the breadbasket, as you have already referred to, the tremendous amount of grain that the world needs to feed hungry people. It is the breadbasket of the world to some degree, and so is Russia. Is it time to launch an operation if Russia will not relent and allow those ports to operate? Who could launch an operation to open up that seaway, if you will, to merchant vessels so that food can move around the world?
So you raise an important point. There are millions of tons of grain already harvested that are waiting to be delivered. And I spoke recently with a gentleman who runs one of Ukraine's ports, or has in the past. And he said that the type of grain that we're talking about does not store well. So it's at risk of going bad here in the next few months if it doesn't get delivered in time. And then there is another crop that's coming in. So we are at a situation where not only are people depending on this food, millions of people, particularly in Africa and the Middle East and somewhat in Asia, but it's going to get worse if this doesn't get fixed. Now, clearly, the United Nations has a role to play here. Russia, obviously, as a permanent member of the Security Council, will block or veto actions by the United Nations that would force them to allow shipments to happen. which I think is on a related theme that we can discuss one day. Does Russia deserve to have a seat on the UN Security Council with voting and veto rights? Maybe it's time for the Security Council to be revamped. Nonetheless, I think we are getting close to the time where if the United Nations or the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, can't cause something to happen, then I think the United States or the Alliance or Turkey or somebody is going to have to take decisive action to open this up. The Russian Navy is zero threat to any serious NATO force. They are not that good. That's been on display now for the past several months. They are not that good. So if it came down to it, the Russian Navy would be swept from the sea. The problem is we continue to deter ourselves and worry about provocation when in fact, every time we've finally stepped over a threshold that we were scared of before, nothing's happened. And so I think it's time that we consider working with our Turkish ally, supporting them, enabling them to open up, to escort grain convoys and other merchant vessels to let them get out of Odessa and out of the Black Sea.
You're talking about a potential confrontation between NATO ships and Russian ships. Do you think that there is a way of tying a bow on this where Russia is told NATO forces that are moving in that area, which is international waters, are not going to confront or attack Russian ships, but they are very serious about opening up world food shipments?
Yeah, look, we have allowed the Russians to deter us, or we've deterred ourselves because we're so concerned about something seen as provocation. Yeah, I mean, you remember, it wasn't that long ago, we were seriously arguing about whether or not to give Stinger to the Russians. And now here we are, we're providing artillery and rocket launch, all sorts of real capability. And I believe that this, it would be another example of call their bluff and communicate directly to the Kremlin and say, look, this is a humanitarian mission. We're going to escort all these ships that are loaded with grain and any others to come from Odessa directly out through the straits to wherever the ports are, wherever they're supposed to deliver this grain. And we're going to open this up and we're going to protect it. And we're going to have world's greatest air force overhead in international airspace. And if anybody messes with any of our Turkish or Romanian or Bulgarian ships or whoever's escorting, then that ship is going to be destroyed immediately. So this is a humanitarian mission. Now, I'm not naive. There are people that will faint at even the idea of doing this. And I was unsuccessful in an effort with others to ask for a humanitarian no-fly zone for the same reason, to help civilians get out. But if we just allow this third-rate country that happens to have nuclear weapons to continue to call the shots, then there are going to be global implications for this.
And there are global implications right now as people are beginning to go hungry. Food prices are spiking, and it's only going to get worse. General Ben Hodges, thank you so much, sir.
All right, Dana, thanks for the privilege.